These videos started with a simple idea. What if we could make a good Superman movie? When the world is at its most cynical, what if we could return to a semblance of optimism? What if we could tell an uplifting story that embraces the humanity in our heroes again? Now, this idea started as an admittedly small flame amidst the cynical, self-aware superhero movies we get today. But as more of you started watching these videos, a trend became apparent. People want a return to optimism, to enjoyable stories with dramatic weight, stories that are sincere and character-driven. First we discussed Superman and how perfect his values are for a modern cynical audience. We then dove into Green Lantern, telling a 6-movie epic that's on the scale of something like Star Wars. And finally we took a look at The Flash, a personal tale of growth. Regardless, this brings us to today's video, a video on This video has been the accumulative effort of around 7 videos so far, all made by myself in an attempt to pitch a DC universe that embraces the heart of the characters whilst telling a series of satisfying tales for these heroes. A few of you have mentioned that I've jumped straight into the Justice League without first pitching movies for Wonder Woman, Aquaman, or Batman, so let me quickly address why. Aquaman won't be in my Justice League. Every character in this movie serves a utility to the story or has an arc that is fleshed out because of that story, and Aquaman just did neither for the narrative here, so that's why he's not in my Justice League. In my Flash video, I mentioned that Jay was in the Justice Society during World War II. I think this is our first chance for world building, an Easter egg that can be built upon in a further movie. That further movie being Wonder Woman. Look, I really don't have a problem with the first Wonder Woman movie. Sure, it's pretty much just Captain America the First Avenger with a Wonder Woman skin, but it does a decent job at establishing what the character stands for, it has a sufficient arc for her, all that. The only changes I'd make is I'd make it World War II, not World War I. Remove all these buddies of hers and replace it with the Justice Society. Jane is Prime, Dr. Fate, Owlman, all that. Have Wonder Woman learn to lead the group, an attribute which will come in handy in the future. Justice League. If you think about the wars as well and what it does for a character, it makes sense to put her in World War II, being placed in the worst world war history has ever seen. The most casualties. If anything, it'll strengthen her internal conflict about humankind, the good and bad men. She sees a quality in us that is worth saving, that she goes back on her mother's words to leave mankind to their own destruction, with Diana becoming an ambassador to the United States for Themyscira by the movie's end. As for Batman, I'm just gonna say he's already a part of this universe. I'm just utilizing Matt Reeves' Batman. Now, I know what you're gonna say, but SuperFrame, he's arguably a more realistic Batman than Nolan's. How could he possibly exist in a world with Martian Manhunter or Superman? Well, just imagine for a moment that it's 2008. You've just come out of the theatre watching Iron Man, a seemingly grounded and realistic action movie. And I tell you that in just over 10 years, a talking tree, alternate realities, and cosmic beings would also exist in that universe. Well, you would call bullshit.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
And yet here we are, we've got screaming goats. So I don't want to hear any backchat. Pattinson is in this movie, just deal with it. If we can go from corporate businessmen to purple aliens, I think it is plausible to do the same here. So, in my Superman video we cast David Corn Sweat as Superman, in my Flash video we cast Lucas Till as the Flash, and in my Green Lantern video we cast Jensen Ackles as Hal Jordan. However, for reasons I'll soon explain, Hal is busy during the events of the film, so John is Earth's Green Lantern currently, meaning he'll be the Green Lantern that joins the Justice League. As I've explained, Pattinson will be our Batman, so that leaves us with Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, and Hawkgirl. Now, for the longest time, I've wanted Jamie Alexander to play Diana. I think she has the perfect personality for the role, as if she showed she can nail the action, but it's also the regal beauty and grace which accompanies the fierce battle-hardened heroine. This grace is a must, as it stops Wonder Woman from becoming this preachy, hypermasculine hero, kinda like Captain Marvel. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Gal Gadot. While she does a good job with the character, it never felt like Wonder Woman to me. She never felt like she had this fierce warrior energy within her.
I got her.
No, she's mine.
That fire to never give up.
She knows you'll never quit a fight. I think you're supposed to keep going until your heart gives out, or you have an aneurysm, or a cop gets lucky and shoots you.
that drive to just get shit done.
Submit!
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Diana to me is just such a fascinating character. She's a warrior, but also a pacifist. She's distinctly known for her compassion, but is one of the few members of the Justice League that are willing to kill if necessary. She's proactive and actively pursues her goals rather than letting the problems come to her. Whilst being raised as royalty, she's humble and always eager to learn more. She's tactically minded and methodical due to her Amazonian training, and thus a natural leader in a group situation. Whilst Godot embodies elements of this, I still feel like we haven't gotten the complete Wonder Woman I've always envisioned on screen. Someone who is direct with people, who cannot lie and will not abide by lies.
And the rest of you? Are you all prepared to lie?
A lie of omission is still a lie. You kept an important secret from us. No one in the League knew the truth.
I did.
If the Lasso didn't already give it away, truth is kind of her thing. I don't know if this is like a hot take, but I don't believe Gal as an action star. I just think Jamie has a way better chance at nailing this dichotomy of having that grace and compassion, but also being genuinely terrifying to face in battle. Moving on, I think this will be a quick one. We have Martian Manhunter. I'm just going to say this, John Jones has never sounded better than in Young Justice. I don't care what you have to say, suck on my nuts, we're casting Kevin Michael Richardson. Obviously he'd be a CG character, and I think we could get someone like Peter Massar to come in and do the mocap for the character, adding in Kevin's voice in post. Similar to how Ray Park played Darth Maul in Solo, but Sam Witwer came in from the Clone Wars to dub the voice. Now, this leaves us with Shayara Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl has an extremely convoluted history in the comics, a history I think is best we leave alone if you want to avoid getting a migraine. It's so convoluted that Shayara herself is aware of how complicated her story is. That story usually tends to involve ideas of reincarnation, possession, and fate with her partner Hawkman, Carter Hall. However, I've never found the Destiny love angle all that compelling. To me, the most compelling Hawkgirl has ever been is in the Justice League animated series. She's aggressive, a warrior through and through, and a lot less measured than other Leaguers. She's just a badass, a scene stealer, either hitting you in the face with her mace or a witty line.
Of course not. The princess doesn't get cold. The princess doesn't even sweat in the fire pits of Tartarus.
I do too sweat.
Please, you glow.
Now, at the tail end of Season 2, it is revealed that Shayara is a spy working for an alien race called the Thanagarians. She falls in love, has her allegiances waver, and spends the rest of the follow-up show, Justice League Unlimited, atoning for her betrayal. Now, as a guy who can spot potential when I see it, I think, if reworked properly, this could be the ground for a really compelling origin story whilst exemplifying the point of the Justice League itself, a tale of humanity. We see Shayara fall in love with Earth the same way Superman always has, or the way Wonder Woman learnt that there was something worth saving, to learn to be compassionate and to be dutiful.
Close your eyes.
Alright, now before we go any further, we have to acknowledge that a video of this scale and detail would not be possible without the sponsor of this video, Atlas VPN. By now, I'm sure you all know what a VPN is. It's just not safe to be surfing the web these days without some form of protection, and Atlas offering the most competitive prices on the market to ensure you stay protected at no expense to your wallet. So you can stay as filthy rich as Bruce Wayne and as encrypted as the Bat computer with Atlas, stopping ads and malware and blocking malicious links whilst also notifying you when someone is trying to steal your data. Like I just said, Atlas are also offering the most competitive prices in the world. For just $1.70 a month, you'll stay completely protected with 6 extra months and a 30-day money-back guarantee. That is 85% off the regular price. I haven't even mentioned the fact that you can unlock content from all over the world. Using Netflix, you can switch from country to country. It's literally the best deal on the market. To reiterate, that's $1.70 a month plus 6 extra months with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Seriously, I wouldn't be online these days without a VPN, and Atlas are the absolute goats right now trying to sort you guys with an amazing deal. All you need to do is click the first link in the description below, and make sure you capitalize on it whilst you can, as it is a limited time offer. Thank you Atlas for being absolute gems to work with, and now back to the video. In my previous video, we talked about a bunch of musts when creating an ensemble movie, things like a POV character. Well, we got Shayara. Distinct personalities for those characters. Well, it's the Justice League, I don't think you can get more distinct than that. We also have to balance those characters. Well, that's not too hard. A clear theme is also needed. Well, we got the value of humanity to explore, and we also need a clear threat, which I think is easily done as well, having the looming Thanagarian threat overshadow the movie as our heroes slowly discover what's to come. Making Shayara the unspoken lead, the POV character in which the audience experiences this story, means we get to fall in love with humanity as well. It means we get to kill two birds with one stone. We tell a compelling tale for one of our heroes whilst exemplifying the core idea of what a Justice League movie should be about. A world worth fighting for, a world worth saving. All this being said, I think the obvious choice to play Shayara is Carrie Coon. Breaking out as a sister in Gone Girl, Carrie has gone on to win plenty of awards in television and film whilst finding time to star in movies like Ghostbusters Afterlife and playing Proxima Midnight in Avengers Infinity War. With Carrie having delved into action, played dramatic characters that are outspoken and torn, I think she could nail this type of Shayara that I'm after here. Heck, she even sounds like the character.
Jean, wait. It's alright, it's just... well, it's a long story.
What it does is it reveals more about you than it does about me.
I'm really sorry, I really need to double down on this. Carrie is just perfect for this role. Action, tick. Voice, tick. Look, tick. Same age roughly as Sterling, tick. She even has the same personality as Shayara in the show.
Oh, sure. I mean, she taught me a lot about how to walk into a room. You know, she just didn't put up with any of that.
Yeah.
And it really changed the way that I sort of stand. And
as discussed in my previous video, the Justice League is not a story of gods becoming mythic icons. That's the story of the Avengers, heroes becoming more than the men they once were. The Justice League's story is about our humanity. It's about our ability to connect with the world. It's why Diana saw mankind and saw something worth saving. It's why Superman believes in the good in people and why Hawkgirl will ultimately choose Earth as well. The Justice League movie I want to create is one that avoids Superman facing the League. I don't want to see this. It's been done 1,000 times. Just stop making Superman evil. I also don't want to separate our heroes for 90% of the runtime. If we're to believe that they're a team, we need to see that. We need to see friendships form. I don't want a hollow victory. I want the characters to outsmart the villain. I want a movie that has a narrative that unfolds the deeper the characters go. Have the team come together and grow together, learn off each other and address each other's weaknesses. But these are all things I'll get into later. Moving forward, I think it's important that we establish where these characters are at going into this movie. Now, if I had it my way in my hypothetical timeline, the Batman would obviously start off this universe. The Batman is the Batman, we've all seen it. Bruce's journey here is about becoming more than just vengeance, to be a hero, to be more than just a symbol of fear. Much like Iron Man was for Marvel, Batman will be the character to kick off this universe. Now, that will be followed up with the first Superman movie, revealing metas or aliens to humanity. Much like the first Captain America, Superman is our virtuous hero. He's just a good guy wanting to do the right thing because that's how he was raised. And something else, Superman doesn't need to be updated either. The world can change around him, become more cynical, all that, but Superman never does. Much like Captain America, he holds on to his values. This would then be followed up with the first Green Lantern movie. Much like Thor, this will be our first entry into the cosmic. We'll follow Hal being introduced to the Green Lantern Corps, learn about the cosmos, and maybe we can slip in a mention of alien races like the Krolotans, the Reach, the Ranians, and the Thanagarians, just for some world building. Similar to how Thor faced a Cronin in Thor the Dark World before Korg became a larger character down the road. After the first Green Lantern would return back to Batman for the sequel, Heart of Night. Here he'd face Mr. Freeze, with Batman slowly starting to face more and more theatrical adversaries. It might even be nice to open the movie with Killer Croc in an opening action scene, a villain that might have thrived with the flooding of Gotham. Having Batman face adversaries that are a little less realistic will help transition this Batman into the Justice League setting. Kinda like how Iron Man faced a dude who could breathe fire in his third installment. It just kinda makes that transition from guys in suits to a purple alien all the more believable. Also, another thing, we're doing Robin. I don't really need to explain that, we're just doing Robin, alright? It's been too damn long, man. I need a Robin in a Batman movie. After the second Batman movie would tell the tale of the Flash movie I pitched previously, teaching Barry to slow down, to understand that if he's to have a life, he can't be everywhere at once. By the end of the movie, becoming the hero we all know and love, the most balanced member of the Justice League, no lingering grief over a dead parent, no need to save everyone. He's just a guy, and happy about being that. Moving on, we have the Wonder Woman movie. As I mentioned before, this would be set in World War II, not one, and would have her lead the Justice Society that cameoed in the Flash movie. Wonder Woman by the end learns to be a leader, learns that there's something about mankind worth fighting for. worth saving, so she becomes an ambassador to the United States for Themyscira. Moving on, in my Green Lantern video I proposed the idea of a HBO Max show that would run concurrent with the 6-movie saga I pitched for Hal. The saga films following Hal's journey as he meets new characters and cores, whilst the show will expand on the detail of those worlds. For example, the movie might show us Sinestro on Corrigar, whilst the show might show the poverty that exists underneath the city. Regardless, I think this would give us a great opportunity to introduce a hero like Jon Stewart as our lens, to see what the universe is really like, pair him with Kilowog and tell a personal story, leaving him a changed man as he comes back to Earth. After the release of the first season of the Green Lantern Corps show, we then have Superman 2. As I discussed in my Superman video, this will feature Brainiac, Supergirl, and Lex in his battlesuit. It will be the first time humanity realizes these threats are getting too big for one man to take on alone, that Superman can't be everywhere at once. At the end of the movie, Pa Kent will have his heart attack, fueling Superman with a need to save everyone going into his next appearance, that being Justice League. He'll feel guilt for not being there, feeling he wasn't powerful enough to save him. But as we know, Superman could never stop a heart attack, and that'll be a lesson he'll have to learn. So, writing movies is a pretty tedious and tough job. Well, not really, it's just writing, but still, it takes a lot to weave characters together in a meaningful way that makes narrative sense. A problem we see is when writers choose to write characters out of character, the character tends to suffer, and so the story has to artificially develop. Writers start to write these characters into corners because, you have a character that doesn't act like the hero we know. Having the hero do things the hero wouldn't do because you've put them there. In the case of Man of Steel, it's a literal corner that Goya wrote himself into. Well, what's my point here? I think the movie should be a natural result of character interaction. I think the characters should naturally act within character, and that will naturally progress the story. They are not reactionary to events, they are the catalysts that drive the movie forward. Batman is inquisitive and does some detective stuff, Superman will charge in wanting to save somebody, and so forth. Hawkgirl wants to uncover answers, and motives like this is what will move our characters through the story. The story should also flow from the characters and their interactions, what they know, don't know, what their character objectives are, or where they're at internally. Wonder Woman might be the natural leader in a combat situation. She might champion truth and the moral high ground above all. Batman will call the shots and unify everyone's individual objectives into a common goal, a man that wants to complete the mission, so to speak.
I never joke about the mission.
He'll be a character knowing that he needs help as the mission's scope gets larger and larger.
Of course, there's no shame in asking for help. That's why the League exists, because there's some problems even we can't handle individually.
As for the Flash, he'll teach Superman to slow down, providing a human center to the team. As for Superman, he'll come to terms with the death of his father. John, after seeing a galaxy at war, appreciates Earth all the more, and Shayara learns to love humanity through John, seeing the world the way that he sees it. As for Martian Manhunter, he'll act in a similar fashion to Vision in Age of Ultron. Not a plot device per se, but instrumental in our characters understanding their goals, providing a dramatic revelation at the midpoint of the movie. Now, with the cast set and the groundwork laid, let's get into how I would make a Justice League movie. So, the movie begins with a shock open, something in your face, jumping you straight into the story. We see Batman infiltrating down an elevator shaft, using his grappling gun to go down the chute. This is where we hear Robin on comms talking to Bruce, and it'll be the audience's way of understanding where they're at and what they're doing. Bruce saying that Luthor's proxy companies have been tied to weapons shipments in Gotham. Bruce wants to see if it goes deeper, and so it does. He reaches the bottom and unlocks a secret corridor, passing rooms labelled BZ0, and a bunch of others. Obviously, BZ0 is Bizarro. This is just a little setup for Superman 3, it also showing Luthor is working with DNA, so keep that in mind. Anyway, Batman discovers a series of experiments, weapons to counteract the amount of metas that have been popping up in recent years. The scene ends just as Batman locks his eyes on something specific, cutting to Diana in Washington. Now, in the years since her movie, the Justice Society has retired and she's taken up an ambassador position for Themyscira, a liaison between her nation and America. She impatiently awaits a man who arrives in a limousine, Luthor stepping out of the vehicle in a suave way. They chat for a bit as they make their way into the Parliament offices. Diana finding distaste in his arrogance. As for Luthor, he's boastful as ever, filled with hubris, saying how he'll run for president soon with a casual attitude, that most of the politicians are all bored out anyway and it doesn't make much difference if he's in office or not. Metropolis, America, is basically his. Moving back to Batman, he's overriding programs, trying to access a specific file. He sifts through them, seeing files like Amazo and Martian, which makes his eyes flare and only intrigues him to see how deep this goes. He goes deeper only to get rejected out of a file. With his encryption rejected, we cut back to Washington where Luthor is notified on a device. Luthor goes from boastful to serious as he cuts the conversation short with Diana and says, "Excuse me, I'll be a moment." This leads to a short chase sequence in which LexCorp security hunts Batman as he makes his way out of the building. Being the shadowy figure he is, Batman evades the security and leaves without being caught. On top of a rooftop, feeling as though he's escaped, he calms down with a sigh of relief, only to be pinned up against a wall by Superman. "Batman, isn't it? What are you doing in Metropolis?" To which Batman doesn't reply. Superman uses his X-ray vision. "Bruce Wayne. Makes sense." Bruce replies, "Clark Kent, reporter at the Daily Planet." Clark is taken back. He looks shocked. "I've known who you are for months, Clark, and if you want to keep playing reporter with Lois, I suggest you keep quiet about who I am too." Now, the two might have a little scuffle, but nothing serious. Batman says, "So you work for Luthor, his lapdog?" Superman stops all momentum of the scuffle. "No. I heard the silent alarm, and I came. I came to help. I can't lose anyone again." This obviously being Superman's trauma talking here. Anyways, he states, "Me and Luthor, we're nothing alike. That man will never control me." Long story short, the two agree to trade notes and work together. Superman doesn't like Luthor, and right now that's in Batman's best interest, serving his goals to uncover what Luthor is doing in Gotham. Right now, it's a partnership, not a friendship. Back in Washington, Diana is extremely suspicious of how quick Luthor dipped from the meeting, so we see her dip too, take her heels off, rip off her button to reveal her costume underneath, launching into the sky and flying off into the distance with great speed. As for Batman, he's trading notes with Superman as he gets into the Batjet. Just as the two clear buildings and the skies above, Wonder Woman crashes down onto the front of the jet, putting her fist straight through the engine and causing Bruce to eject. Superman goes to restrain Wonder Woman in a controlled manner. "Whoa, calm down there, miss." Superman is headbutt in response, and Wonder Woman frees herself to grab Batman and probe him for questions. So, this must have been why Luthor left. The Bat. Superman comes up behind Diana again, attempting to restrain her. Losing her grip on Batman, Batman is now free-falling. Wonder Woman untangles herself from Superman's grasp, yet again striking him. Recovering from the hit, he spots Batman falling and swoops down in, grabbing him moments before he hits the ground. Wonder Woman draws her sword, attacking Superman. He dodges it, uses his laser vision on her hand, forcing her to drop the sword. She kicks it away. Superman lunges in, only for Batman to step between the two. "Diana, stop." Now, what this scene does is show us a couple of important things for Diana. It establishes Diana's character as someone who seeks out answers and moves towards a problem. She has a sense of agency. It shows she's not afraid of conflict. It shows her abilities, that she can hold her own in close quarters combat. It shows her temperament and her sometimes stubborn will. And it also shows, as we'll soon see, that she's working towards something. So, Batman knows who Diana is, because of course Batman already knows. "Because I'm Batman." Now we get a little rundown not just for the audience but for Clark as well. "Diana Prince, an ambassador to Themyscira. You've recently been involved in Luthor's presidential ambition." To which she states in response, "I'm not in league with him." She explains that she's just trying to figure out what he wants with Metas, that people have been going missing, that she's been trying to get closer to him to figure out what he wants with them. And Luthor dipping, suspiciously, was what was going to be her sign to act. A tip. So, what we have is established our motives for our three characters to act, and also to work together. Batman is using a common interest to his advantage, but he's distrusting of leaning on others for help. Superman doesn't like Luthor and he just wants to expose him for being the bad man that he really is, to find the truth. As for Wonder Woman, she's invested in the country's security, in protecting the innocents, and any weapon production involving lives doesn't sit well with her. Now, narratively, this is where we switch up for a bit. Focus on a few other characters before we return to the trio. Since we're very focused on the plotting right now, it makes sense to alleviate some of the tension with a fun introduction to another character, the Flash. Transitioning to a bank robbery, we see Barry taking his time dismantling Heatwave's gun, or to joke with the trickster. What we're showing is Barry implementing the lesson he learnt from the prior movie. He's content and not overly serious. He's moved past his mother's murder. He's also relinquished a desire for control, to save everyone and be everywhere at all times, to enjoy being a hero, to enjoy the moment. This is what allows him to have fun, to start to relax. Now, just as the Flash delivers the striking blow to the final rogue, we do a match cut to Hawkgirl getting hit from another location. She's in Earth's higher atmosphere. We only see her getting hit from the POV of the assailant. She's being attacked. We see the two crash through clouds, but we can't make out her adversary. The last thing we see is a thunderous strike from her mace, sending the assailant crashing down with her. Cutting back to Barry, who's outside, he hears a lightning strike, but there's no lightning. It's a thud from Shayara's mace. He looks up at the sky only to see two figures impacting the desert just outside of Central City. Just as Barry zooms off, we cut to a close-up of Green Lantern's ring, zooming out to reveal John Stewart arriving back on Earth. The ring flashes with a distress, and John acknowledges the alien signature the ring picked up, his eyes going green. John makes his way down to the area to see a crater with a woman lying there, the Flash kneeling at the body. Now, from both perspectives, this will create an obvious standoff. From Barry's perspective, he's a crime scene analyst. Deductively, what makes sense is if a flying figure crash lands, only to be followed by another flying figure, well, they're most likely related. So Barry speeds back from the body, nervous if this green figure will attack him. From John's perspective, it's equally alarming, seeing a guy standing over an unconscious body. John, seeing him move, creates a hand construct to grab Barry, but he moves again. This leads to a small altercation, nothing serious, but a fun 30-second altercation nonetheless. John creates another construct, and Barry uses his speed and runs along up the construct, kicking John in the face. John recoups himself. "You've just assaulted a member of the Green Lantern Corps. I'm placing you under arrest." Barry, who knows Hal, says in confusion, "A Green Lantern? Aren't you meant to be a white guy?" Obviously referring to Hal. I think what would be really neat is to have the Flash monologue over his movie in certain aspects, similar to Iron Man 3, and then perhaps in a post-credits scene we can reveal that it was Hal that he was talking to all along. I don't know, it would just be kinda neat considering their friendship is a really significant part of Barry's character. Anyways, John in response says, "Hal's dealing with an intergalactic threat that seeks to consume the universe. You know how?" Barry in response says, "Yeah, we've met a couple times, nice guy, but just to backtrack though, did you say intergalactic threat that is going to consume the universe?" Basically, we move the conversation to the point where the focus shifts back to Shayara and the crater. Barry saying, "I didn't do this. The other figure that fell landed somewhere in the mountains beyond that tree line." Barry continues to talk and waffle on before being cut off by John. He says, "She's Thanagarian." Barry saying, "She's what now?" John replies, "Thanagarian, a warrior race." And this is where he gives us some exposition, whilst connecting with her as he is a warrior too. Whilst he's describing the Thanagarians, he's also realizing he's describing himself. Brave, noble, can pack a hell of a punch. Barry asking, "How do you know all this?" John says, "I don't, the ring does." Just as John goes to check on her injuries, she awakes to see John kneeling over her. She clenches her mace and awakes with a cry, "Ha!" as she strikes him. John, shielding himself, says he's not a threat. Barry, being reasonable and level-headed as always, moves in to talk to her, putting his arm out to shake her hand. "Hi, I'm Barry." She swings at him and misses, a couple times actually, before he's able to talk her down. John asking who she is, to which she says in confusion, "I don't know." Now, amnesia is a really tired trope, and most of the time it's just a really contrived way to tell a story, but if it's manufactured into the story in a meaningful way where it adds to the drama, the reveals, the tension, and the suspense, then I have no issue with it. So, Shayara is essentially a blank canvas at this point. John uses his ring to translate her collar. It's Thanagarian, translating her name. Shayara Hall. Does that sound right? "It feels right," she replies, the two smiling at each other. She asks where exactly she is, and this is where John decides to fill her in. Encasing the two in a green force-filled bubble, they launch into the air higher and higher. If you want, you can comedically cut back to Barry alone in the desert. "Yeah, thanks for the invite, John." So this is the scene where John shows Shayara Earth. This is the scene, the moment where she falls in love with the planet. The two flying together through an aurora borealis, going higher to see the Earth from above. She says, "It's beautiful, John." Now we might bring the two back down to Earth, and as they do, they bump shoulders, they hold hands. However, we match cut to a memory of her holding hands with another, someone with the same armor as she. She has a flash of a war, a Martian, and the final moments she had before she lost consciousness. Then she finds herself back in the present moment. She turns to John and says, "I think I know the key to unlocking my memory." Now, they move the convo to a place where they realize the key to unlocking that memory will lie with the alien that she crash-landed with. A Martian. She's excited and hopeful that in meeting him, he'll have some answers for her. They check the crash site in the mountains, but nothing is there, so GL scans Earth for other alien life forms, and two show up. One in Metropolis close by, so they decide to go there. Cutting to Metropolis, we see Bruce, Diana, and Clark in civil garb eating a breakfast in Bibbo's diner. We might have some fun with Bibbo serving them, saying what a big Superman fan he is, saying to Clark, "You look a lot like him." Clark in response nervously laughs. Diana says he gets that a lot. Anyways, once Bibbo leaves, the trio start discussing back and forth about Luthor. Wonder Woman mentions some more about meta-teens disappearing and her need to find them. Just as they start to get somewhere with the conversation, they start to see people running in the street, Green Lantern and Hawkgirl floating down kinda ominously, Entering the diner slowly, everyone is quiet, a little taken back. Joe is following his ring, flashing the closer he gets to Clark. Now, we get the whole we need to talk scene, and this is where Diana suggests moving the conversation to a place a little less public. Cutting to the Batcave, the heroes discuss what they know. Diana says, "Do you think there's a link between Hawkgirl and Luthor?" Batman, pondering, says he's not sure just right now. Superman says something like, "If it involves Luthor, it has to be bad." I don't know, man, I just love a really wholesome Superman. To which John gives Clark a raised eyebrow expression in response, just because of how corny that sounded. Anyways, the group discuss and find a link between Hawkgirl and the Martian, and Batman what he saw about a Martian file. Bruce, on the Bat computer, finds a base tied to Luthor in the files that he did access, a base in a mountain range not far from where the other alien crashed. Suddenly, the heroes realize the key to what Luthor is doing, and the key to Hawkgirl's memories, likely lie within that base. To Diana, this just clicks, based off what Bruce has seen about the DNA experiments and Shayara's missing meta friend. If the missing meta teens are going to be anywhere, it'll be here. However, Diana can see the schematics of the base. Using her tactical know-how and military experience, she's the first to point out how heavily fortified the base is, that we just won't be able to go in guns blazing, that there's only 2 specific windows to get in, that we'll need someone quick and quiet. John says he knows a guy. This is where we cut to Luthor on a call with the scientist, wanting a progress report immediately, telling him he needs to speed up, that he has heroes on his ass now. As the call goes on, we in fact see that Luthor does have a series of metas being kept in stasis, along with a Martian. Okay, cutting to a tree line, we see our team scouting out the base from afar. They have a little pre-attack plan. Batman says, "Our windows are here and here." Flash, who has joined the group, says with hesitancy, because he's a cop, "This feels super illegal." Batman turns to Barry and says that you deal vigilante justice to wrongdoers. Bit rich to be on the illegal bandwagon now. Barry says, "Hey, speak for yourself. I'm not the only one with a mask. Ever looked in the mirror?" Even Birdbrain over here is concealing her identity. Hawkgirl snarls, "Watch your tongue, boy." Superman smiles over the bickering. Alright, are we gonna do this or not? One last thing, I also want the characters to stress the importance of this going to plan, that meta teens' lives are at stake, that they can't go guns blazing or get caught, that they can't rush in. So, the Flash takes Batman, breaking the two into the facility. He phases through a wall, opening up a clearance for Batman to access. Now, whilst the two are in the facility, they can squabble a bit, Batman emphasizing he doesn't like this, that it's too quiet. Flash saying, by the sounds of it, you don't like anything. Anyways, the two can be made, which sets off an alarm at the base. Suspensefully, a door ominously opens, a little bit of steam coming out of it. We hear the sound of a metal foot walking towards them. We see the Flash's face. He says, he doesn't look friendly. Back at the group, Superman is the first to dive in naturally. He's been watching the entire conflict using his X-ray vision, and he sees that they've been sprung. So he wants to help, not just because he's a Boy Scout, but because he wants to do the right thing. Considering after his second movie where he sees his father die, Superman is now filled with the same desire Barry once had, to help everyone, that he can't lose anyone. So he dives in. Dinah says to Clark, "Wait." But Superman doesn't listen, steamrolling into the facility only to stop as he sees the Flash and Batman facing off against Amazo. Bruce tells Clark to get back, that it's scanning his powers, but it's too late. We hear a cold line. Access Superman. And so the fight just gets harder. This is only exacerbated and made worse by Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Wonder Woman following Superman in, scanning the powers of the entire League. Now, whilst this is a horrible situation to find themselves in as Amazo begins to copy the powers of each Leaguer, it's also a great opportunity to show a really creative action scene, a villain that highlights the strengths and the weaknesses of the League, how they work together to overcome this threat. This action scene will be substantial. It'll show our heroes actually struggling against a physical opponent, relying on their smarts, but most importantly, teamwork to win the fight. Now, I really say teamwork with a real sense of gravity here, because this will be the moment these people, all with their own goals, start to unify and become something more than themselves. A team. A league. Batman naturally understands his abilities are best suited elsewhere, with the mission, that a detective is best not fighting an android that can copy the powers of his allies, so he works on freeing the Martian, in a scene very similar to Vision's birth. He also makes it a priority to free the kids, thus undoing Luthor's plans. Generally, a midpoint should dramatically change the trajectory of our story. Whilst the story to our heroes has been about Luthor and metas right now, what it has actually been about this whole time has been the Thanagarians. To the audience right now, we think that the A plot is the meta angle with the Trinity, with the B plot being Shayara's memory issue and her entanglement with John and the Flash. But one character will switch that all around. that will force Shayara and Thanagar into the spotlight of this story. Now, the freeing of the Martian Manhunter will facilitate our characters shifting their priorities, that the meta angle was just a device to get our heroes all to this one place. The false hope of the conflict being over is just that, a fallacy. That the real story begins now. The Martian leaps from his entombment, flying towards the League. Beelining for Amazo, he phases through him, then re-densifies before hitting him into the ground. He phases through his skull and sparks start to fly as the android is defeated. Now, this introduction, this staging is interesting. Whilst he's helped the League, he's come out incredibly hostile. The League doesn't know if they should trust him yet. This is made worse when he locks eyes with Shayara. Shayara begins to remember him. He was the one that she was fighting. Her initial excitement turns to worry. He isn't the key to returning her memory. He was the one trying to attack her. The Martian lunges at her, crashing through a series of walls, exiting the facility. The two are now in open air. Shayara darts through trees, trying to escape his pursuit. The Martian tailing, not evading, just phasing through the trees. She exits out into open desert plain, where Jean grabs her, pinning her down and putting his hands on her temples. Her eyes roll back as she starts to remember. Whilst this is happening, she hits John with her mace. From here, the rest of the League catch up the two. Gio is noticeably most heated, defending Shayara in the Martian's face. Answers now as he sticks his ring in Jean's face. From here, Jean calmly explains, "My name is Jean Jones." What we get is pretty much an expository bit of dialogue that fills in his motives and what has happened up until this point. He explains that he's been a silent protector on Earth for some time now, a watchful guardian protecting Earth from planetary invasions. He reveals that Shayara was a scout working for Thanagar, a first soldier to touch base and relay if the planet is safe for a takeover. It was Jean's intentions to wipe her mind, to make her forget why she was here, a hold-off on an incoming attack. Just as he got a hold of her and was wiping her mind, as the two were falling from the sky, he was struck with a crack from her mace. Unconscious and picked up by Luthor and the government, he's been entrapped up until Batman just freed him. He apologizes for such a hostile entry, but he had to know if her mind had been wiped, or if she had alerted the Thanagarian forces. Naturally, with this information in the open now, people start to discuss. Diana asking Shayara if this is true. Some spy, a scout ready to invade. Barry saying it doesn't sound that simple. John just silently looking at Shayara, a woman he had formed a semblance of trust with, now in question. Shayara, with a dramatic pause, begins to speak. She says she remembers now. "I was sent on a mission to infiltrate and undercut the political strength of the government of your world. Jean, who's a detective, caught on to what I was doing, and that led to an altercation where I lost my memory." She says this with a level of sorrow. Batman has no interest in her sorrow, he just cares about the facts, the mission. He says, "Shayara, you're an existential threat to this planet." And that's where John steps in. He says to Batman, in the coldest line of this movie, "I'm an existential threat to this planet." He looks into Batman's eyes, showing no fear, as a Green Lantern would. He follows it up with a character hit. That Batman's power comes from people being afraid of him. But what happens when he encounters a man that's power comes from overcoming fear? Well, we have a conflict. He continues on to say that Flash, Superman, we're all existential threats to this planet. She's not here to hurt anyone. And just as John is saying this, Shayara swells with emotion, flying off. Shayara at this point is all over the place. She doesn't know what to think. She's disconnected from her identity, one that tells her that this planet is the enemy. However, what she knows to be true is this planet, humanity, its beauty. John sees Shayara fly off and goes to chase after her, but Wonder Woman stops him. She says, "I'll talk to her." Now, what I want to do here is highlight Wonder Woman's greatest strength, not her decisiveness in combat, not her grace or desire for truth, it's her compassion, to allow Shayara to have a shoulder to cry on, so to speak, to be a listener. Now, for those who are movie buffs, you might know something called the Bechdel test. Generally, the Bechdel test is used to identify if women in fiction can exist in a story outside the need to talk about or be motivated by a man. Characters like Ripley and Furiosa, even Katniss, pass this test. Applying it to our story here, I think it's important that Wonder Woman and Hawkgirl can have a conversation here and not talk about the men in the story, that the focus is on Hawkgirl's humanity, her identity, Wonder Woman's compassion, that they can talk about an idea and learn from each other without belittling or blaming men, or being motivated by them. Back with the League, Barry can be the voice of reason. Makes sense considering he's the most balanced member of the League. He might tell John that she just needs some time, that she's just found out she was sent here to destroy the planet, not save it. Superman might want to check up on Hawkgirl too, but Barry cuts him off. "I know you mean well, Superman, but you rushing in before almost cost us our lives." He tells Superman he needs to slow down, that he can't save everyone. Cutting back to the girls, the focus stays on Shayara reliving her memories that are starting to come back to her, that she had a husband, Carter Hall. In this, I'm making Carter Hall the Emperor and leader of the Thanagarian forces, just keep that in mind. She turns her pain into anger and reaffirms her humanity by standing with Earth and deciding to fight for humankind. In movie speak, this would be the seize the sword moment, the scene where Shayara becomes a hero, has a moment of clarity, assisted by Wonder Woman, making sense of the beauty in humanity, to illustrate why she fights for humanity. That Wonder Woman saw something worth saving, and now Shayara sees that too. Okay, moving into what is essentially the third act, we now have the stage set for our heroes to close out this movie. But I don't want some mindless third act army shenanigans. Story and character is what is going to continuously drive this, so let's keep doing that. Perhaps something instigates Thanagar's arrival. It might be as simple as a piece of Shayara's uniform getting crushed in a bout previously. Her homing signal disappears, and to Carter it either means the signal's being jammed by hostiles, or she's dead due to a hostile race. So Thanagar mobilizes their fleet. Moving back to the League, we get to see the pre-battle speech, the what this means to the world shit, as we get to see Thanagar's fleet start to mobilize over Earth's orbit. We see this amazing shot of this alien carrier moving in the way of the sun, with Carter Hall's attack force mobilizing. Now, like I said, story and character will drive this thing, so Batman, being the brainy one, puts into action a plan. Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and himself confront the lead command ship, infiltrating it to make their way to the command post, it almost seeming a little too easy. They confront the Emperor, only to realize that it's a trap.
Ray shields. Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this.
For now, they're defeated and held down. Cutting back to the rest of the League, they begin to engage the Thanagarians in combat, working together, Wonder Woman calling the shots, Superman providing a huge target, and the Flash moving civilians and minimizing casualties whilst assisting the other Leaguers where he can. This scene ending with one or two of them being overwhelmed, saying, "I hope they're doing better than us." Match cutting, we see Batman knee to the face by a Thanagarian soldier as the three lied chain tied down beneath the Emperor. He states that Shayara is a traitor and will be put to death. She declares that the people of Earth are worth saving. She wants to know, why Earth? Gloating because he's in a place of power, the Emperor exposits that the Earth is in a strategic place in the universe. It's caught next to two hyperspace lanes that make it perfect for trade. It's in a strategically close place to enemies like the Reach and Ran, and neighbouring planets like Rimbor only a couple sectors over. With the Emperor stating his intentions, he moves to terraform the planet, sending vessels that would destroy the Earth's climate surface. With Batman now understanding Thanagar's intentions and has heard everything he needs to hear, being the amazing escape artist he is, he's already managed to undo his cuffs and uses 2 seconds of freedom to take out the guard. He throws a batarang at Green Lantern, breaking his cuffs before being hit into a wall himself. John frees Hawkgirl, to which she says to John to stop the terraformers. Batman gets up and goes for the system's computers, while Shayara fights off guards that are coming in. The Emperor stands and makes his way towards Batman. Back on the ground, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Martian Manhunter are dealing with wave upon waves of Thanagarians. Wonder Woman may be calling the shots whilst kicking ass in a really intense way. Martian Manhunter might beat one, phase through another, but then get electrified by a third one with its mace. As for the Flash, he might cough blood as he's hit in the gut with a mace. Flash gritting his teeth, dealing an overhand at super speed, which plants the Thanagarian into the ground. As for Superman, he's faring a little better. Calm and collected as he defeats a series of Thanagarians, they have a bit of a war cry at him as they charge at him. He calmly states, "Inside voices please fellas." Now the tone of the fight changes when the lead lieutenant lands. With the strength on par of that of Superman and combat ability with the likes of Wonder Woman, he becomes a force to be reckoned with. Back with John, he's speeding through the ship, trying to stop the terraformers before they deploy. But he's too late. He shoots off into space chasing after them. Wonder Woman sees the terraformers making their way to the atmosphere. She makes a choice to send Superman and Martian Manhunter towards them, leaving the Flash and Wonder Woman to take out the lieutenant. Naturally, they're able to defeat him, but through great struggle. A chess match of creative uses of their abilities to outsmart the lieutenant's combat training. Catching up with Green Lantern, Superman, and Martian Manhunter, they use their combined effort to stop 2 terraformers spearing towards Earth entering the atmosphere. And if you want to make it even more intense, perhaps Superman and Martian Manhunter are being pursued by Hawk people. Martian Manhunter fends them off while Superman is left to save the day. Here we just see this awesome, great feat of strength from Superman, and great use of the ring's ability containing a blast field as the terraformers explode. Back on the ship, Shayara is fighting the Emperor one-on-one, whilst Batman evades. The fight is personal, with him attacking her identity, attacking her betrayal to her husband, but also to her people. That she's not human. She's not even Thanagarian anymore. That she's nothing. All this whilst Batman has figured out a way to send the Armada home. With the Emperor essentially defeated, he refuses to concede, and so he initiates a self-destruct button on the command ship they're in. That he'd rather die than give up the Earth to the Reach, or even worse, to Darkseid. The Emperor starts to ramble, but Shayara knocks him unconscious. Bruce takes his device on his wrist, but the self-destruct has already been initiated. Bruce says, "I can't read Thanagarian, how long do we have?" Shayara looks at Bruce in a worry. 20 seconds. Bruce's eyes widen as he goes straight to comms. John, get us out of here. Ship's rigged to self-destruct. John, hearing this without a moment's hesitancy, races towards the ship, barreling straight through the command deck. We get a big suspenseful moment as we wonder if our heroes are dead, only to see the rubble clear as the three lie within a green force field where the command ship once stood. A bubble hovering above Earth. With Shayara and John realizing how much they actually mean to each other, how quick he was to save her, the two share a kiss. After the moment is over, Batman says, "Are you done?" as the scene ends. Now, on the ground we see Superman, Martian Manhunter, Flash, and Wonder Woman be joined by the other three only to have government cars pull up on them, demanding their immediate surrender, charged with unlawful access of a government facility, government property destruction, and vigilantism. However, whilst the heroes stand their ground, it's the civilians the Flash saved during the beginning of the battle that stand up for the heroes.
You want to get to him, you gotta go through me.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
The League's starting to realize maybe there's a place for a uniform team of heroes, a League of Justice, a Justice League. What this scene also does is reinform the actual theme of the movie. Having civilians who represent humanity come in to literally save the League reinforces the hero's belief in humanity, and Shayara's ultimate choice to choose humanity, to choose the people, because the people have chosen her. They've chosen the League. Perhaps Shayara talks over a scene of a watchtower being built out of pieces of the destroyed command ship, Green Lantern moving pieces into place. She talks about humanity, the utility of heroes, and having something to aspire to be better. The movie closing out, with Batman pulling a sheet off of a Justice League table with an insignia embossed into it. Business as usual. Big musical cue, and cut to black. There's your movie. So looking at what we've created here, we've been able to do a lot of things. We've set the stage for Superman's final movie, we've hinted at a room, BZ0, aka Bizarro. We've shown the effects of Superman 2 with Superman charging in and feeling he has to save everyone, like Barry once had to. And Barry, we've shown the results of his movie, how content and balanced he is as a person, being a voice of reason and learning to have fun with being a hero. He balances out the dynamic. He's the most well-rounded member of the larger personalities. If anything, we've shown him he's in a great place to become a mentor, perhaps for a Flash too. With Diana, we've shown her combat leadership in action, but we've also been able to highlight her compassion and grace. We've given her a scene where her empathy gets to shine. We've distinctly created two very different female heroines, ones that have defined characteristics that separate the two warriors apart. One that is headstrong on a mission to find truth, and another on a mission to find herself, her place in the universe, and discover her identity. Of course, we have Batman, who ties this all together, moving the story forward through planning, using the character to his strengths by highlighting scenes that encompass his stealth and his technical ability. We also have Green Lantern. We've shown that John has something worth fighting for now. We've shown he has no fear, that his humanity and love of Earth has extended upon Hawkgirl, creating a rapport. What I've essentially tried to do is to tell a Justice League story that tells a clear story first and foremost. I think it'd be really easy to make a convoluted movie with 7 characters in an ensemble. I want to make sure that there aren't 20 different storylines to navigate, with each character fighting for attention as the story's lead. Instead, we have a few characters who stand out as the main players of the story. Batman, obviously, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl. The reason I chose those two specifically is because they haven't gotten movies yet, so it makes sense to focus on the two. We also have characters that add utility to the story, that aid those characters either in exposition like the Martian Manhunter or in support like Wonder Woman and the Flash. We're also able to inch the story forward for characters like Superman, getting to see firsthand the effects of his second film, his desire to rush in and help everyone, perhaps seeing him resolve this turmoil in his third movie. Now, I'm not too sure if I can see myself doing many of these types of videos in the future, at least ones this big specifically. If I were to do it, it'd likely be for an X-Men movie. With that being said, if you guys want to support the video, a like and a share goes a long way, especially if you actually dug the video. If you want to support the channel, I now have a Patreon. Yeah, I'm super excited about it and all the tier lists. Shield Agent, Avenger, and Illuminati. The Illuminati package I'm really excited about. Not only will you get early access to videos, you'll get behind the scenes videos on how I make my content. 2 of them are already up. You'll also have the ability to direct where this channel goes in the future with community polls and voting on video ideas. You have access to PNGs of every model I make and every title I've used, all with the added standards like being mentioned at the end of a video and all that. For a full breakdown on the tier packages, you guys can check out the link in the description below. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for those who have patiently waited. I really do appreciate it. Your support really does mean the world, and I will see you guys in the next video. Ciao.